Hello, everybody, and you are watching an Indie Plus Pound Game Night special. So this is August 2014. This is our August Game Night, and this is an awesome panel where we talk about tabletop RPGs. And in specificity, this panel has a number of experts who are parts of different RPG communities. And so what we're going to do tonight is tackle how do you build an RPG community. So this event upholds the Indie Plus community standards. To find out more about those standards, please Google for Indie Plus community standards. Please be aware that this event may include discussions about or descriptions of explicit and or abusive language, or which I may shorten into expusive, which, you know, we can hashtag that later. So the community panel, we're going to talk about a number of different types of community, and so we have people from all walks of life within community building. First of all, we have the organizer of Let Us Game, which is an RPG convention that's online. He's been the head of this community of gamers sharing their passion. This is Tre Grisby. How are you doing, Tre?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. This will be fun.
Absolutely. Next, we have Whitney Beltran, who is a gaming academic, which means she studies this stuff. She might know what she's talking about more than me, probably. And she's also part of Gaming as Other. Thank you for coming on, Strix.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here and talk about community today.
Cool. Then we have the chief bottle washer of RPGGeek, which happens to be the most recent ENnie award winner of best website. That was a gold for RPGGeek. Dave Bernazanni. How you doing, Dave?
Good, Rich. Thanks for having me back.
I'm so excited that RPGGeek won, because it's a great little online website that I like. And last but not least, we have the marketing coordinator and founding member of the IGDN network. We have Marissa. How are you doing, Marissa Kelly?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
All right, so before we begin the panel, well before Gen Con, because there wasn't nobody around on Google Plus during Gen Con, other than posting pics, which I had to look at and be all sad, because I didn't go. Speaking of pics, if you have not seen Marissa Kelly as Magneto, you need to hunt it down. She's like the greatest Magneto of all time.
Amen.
Okay, so
Thank you.
So ahead of time, we solicited 4 questions from you, people within our circles who follow Indie Plus, and we'll start off with that. However, if you are watching this live right now, please do feel free to utilize the Q&A feature within this event, because we will do our very level best to get to those questions and try to prioritize them, move them to the top of the queue. We have a number of questions that we've received ahead of time, though, and that's what we'll start off with. And I think before we do that, what I'd like to do is if each of you could just give me a kind of a brief rundown of kind of the communities that you've been involved with, just so we can kind of understand your point of view and your expertise, as it were. So I'm going to start off with Dave, because I've already stroked his ego with this whole RPGGeek is a really great thing. So Dave, walk us through, what's RPGGeek?
This is that's why my head is so much bigger than the rest of the panelists here.
I thought it was because you were leaning in. But
I know.
Okay, go ahead.
The best I can do.
Marissa wins.
I help out over at RPGGeek. I was there when we first started the alpha and the beta, and we just reached our 5-year milestone. So I was there back in the days when it was primarily just database and maybe a few dozen of us just putting data into the system. And it's been a kind of a long, slow climb of building the community up, gathering gamers, game masters, people who are interested, and it was hard. We started obviously a little bit late in the world of internet communities, but it's taken us a little while. But I think we finally got there.
You're waiting for MySpace to crash and Friendster, and then you would start at the next.
It was hard for us. We had to compete with RPGNet, which had been around a long, long time. And there were some other communities which have since come and gone, but I think we've reached we're there.
I agree. All right, so Marissa, talk to me about IGDN. So several letters.
Yes, so that long acronym stands for the Indie Game Developer Network, and few years ago, Mark and I started Magpie Games, and on top of that, we were like, you know, it would be nice is to have all of these people that we go to for advice and help be kind of in one place. And Mark was gracious enough to be the president for us, and then we decided that we wanted to do make it more like of a democracy and not make it like the Mark and Marissa show. And so we started holding elections, and now we have like a whole bunch of different teams that are dedicated to doing different stuff, like going to conventions and helping sell each other's products, you know, and other things like that. But our core is an email list where we are able to chat privately about questions and other concerns that we might have that we might not want to broadcast to the worldwide internet.
Thanks, Marissa. So Trey, walk us through. You know, Let Us Game is an online convention, but how long have you guys been around? What are you about?
Well, yeah, I've been around since March 2013, and last year we did it quarterly. This year had some life transition, so couldn't keep up a quarterly schedule. I feel like I'm standing amongst giants, at least. It's really the idea that we're trying to get people to game online as a convention style, because a lot of the mindset is not stuck, but still in the point where, oh, we have to get together physically to do a convention. I'm like one of those type of people that I was living in the boonies for a really long time, and so my town had 150,000 people. Hardly any of them gamed the independent games that I like to game, and so it was really hard to get anybody to, you know, like 4 or 5 people to play a game. And so I ran into Indie Plus, and I'm like, yes, this was awesome in like 2012. And then they weren't able to continue that kind of online convention style, so I was like, wait a second, let's do this. So my focus has definitely been trying to get people to game online a convention style. So our community only really activates when there's a convention. There's definitely that we want people to talk in between, but not too much. It's more, let's get a convention together, get that energy that happens from meeting people only every once in a while, and try something new, like a new game or play test your game, that kind of thing. So, yeah, my convention's not always, or sorry, my community isn't constant. It's just every once in a while. And we're having one in September. God, I got to self-promote here. September 1st through 7th is our next one, so in 2 weeks. So if you're watching us live, go check out the LUGCon community on Google+. All you need to do to be part of it, there's no registration, everything's free. Just be respectful. Start a game, start an event during that time period, and people will come check that event schedule and try and jump into what they can.
Excellent, excellent. So Strix, talk to us about the communities you've been involved in, what you might be in now.
Sure. So I actually draw my community building expertise from a variety of diverse places. I used to run a tri-state area gaming community. It was focused on Legend of the Five Rings for several years. It had several hundred members. I also actually worked as a community facilitator in the Peace Corps in Ecuador, which was extremely hard and challenging work, but taught me a lot about how to make communities empowered. And then recently I've been working a lot with Games on Demand. I was with them at Gen Con this last weekend, and I also work under the banner of Gaming as Other, which is sort of a nebulous community of people who are interested in making gaming communities specifically more diverse, more welcoming to minority members of all stripes and colors and orientations. So I do a lot of activities and work around that as well.
Thanks, Strix. So hopefully we've built kind of a foundation of where everybody's coming from, so you'll listen to them because they have cool things to say. Adam D is the first question that we'll read here. He posted this early. Given that it's sometimes easy to build a community at the cost of standards, what advice do you have for maintaining those standards? Or put another way, how can I grow my gaming group while keeping toxic personalities out?
Okay, I'll start with this one because I liked it, and I don't really have a huge answer for it. But basically, be very strict and forward about what your standards are, and use that ban button a lot. I've been able to keep things in check by engaging people to make sure I'm not misinterpreting them, because with the internet, It's really easy to misinterpret a comment. But second, I definitely will ban people as a moderator if it's not following the stance of what we're trying to go for. So it's like, hey, have you read this? Hey, I'm trying to engage your comment to make sure that we're, understanding what you're trying to say. And if you're just straight up mean or illegal, whoosh, got to get you out of there. So that's my answer.
Yeah, oh, do you want to go ahead?
No, go for it.
Okay, so I think this is actually really important. You have to maintain your standards, because once you stop maintaining them, it's a very slippery slope, and the behaviors that we don't like breed very rapidly. I know that in in-person communities, one of the best things that you can do is to actually make the environment hostile to this kind of stuff. And by hostile, I don't mean mean. I'm just saying make it clear that it's unwelcome. Make it clear that you're not going to engage. And if it really comes down to maintaining standards or keeping members who are toxic, always, always maintain standards, because you also have to think about the health of the rest of your members, right? And taking care of them and making sure that it is a safe place for everybody. Safe being a nominal word, but it's important to consider.
Marissa, you're about to talk?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the point of being upfront and forward is where I'm going to kind of latch on. Is that when you're starting your group, I think it's important to kind of name what is assumed and come up with what we would call maybe norms, which is how do we like interacting with each other, and actually putting like a name to that and being like, well, I like it when we're all in time to panels, or when we're all in early to panels, or when everyone is engaged, or we respect this and that about our time together. And I think that figuring out how everyone's expectations and basing it around sort of a norms externalizes personal conflicts that might not actually be personal conflicts. So if really everyone knows that I just like my time, like I like everyone to read the email, like I'm sending out an email before we're all going to get together, that I expect that everyone has read that, then I'm not mad at you, Rich, when you don't, read it. We just call out that this was what we all agreed on beforehand, so let's try and respect the norm rather than respecting Marissa and her wishes, because that kind of relationship can get a little toxic when it's actually not personal at all to begin with.
I don't like to read, so that's good.
And that's fine. You might have another norm that's like, we make sure that everything is accessible via video, and that's totally fine.
Check out my YouTube channel.
Yes.
Notes.
Please
Awesome.
call me with any concerns you have.
Nice. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to throw in?
I think the most important thing is just set expectations. Whenever we start up a new game, even if it's with people we've gamed with before, we always set the expectations for, when do you show up? When do you, we call it a charter. It seems a little formal, I know, but do you bring your own food? Can you have food at the table? When are you, if you miss a session, how do you communicate that to let people know? You set expectations up front, and I think things usually go pretty well. But anybody that's organized any kind of game groups, either in person or online, there's always going to be that person you have to talk to. I've had to kick somebody out of my group. I didn't really enjoy it. It was a long discussion with the person, but you have to do it. You have to think about the other 4 or 5 people that are at the table, or the thousands of people that are on your community online. So,
Dave, to kind of spin to RPGGeek, have you had to deal with any toxic RPG personalities within RPGGeek, and is there a policy you guys have had to create there? Anything different from Board Game Geek, or?
We seem to. I don't want to. I definitely don't want to speak ill of BGG, but they're huge, right? They're enormous. So if you've got a few bad apples at RPGGeek, you're going to have a bushel at BGG, just because the numbers scale up. I think they're getting pretty close to their 1 millionth registered member. So we're probably something like 1/20th that size. So We have had some rules in place that we borrowed from BGG. We've modified them. We almost never direct anybody towards them. Really, the main rule is don't be a jerk, right? Or flavors of that you can't really say in PG land. So as long as they follow that, right, that's 99% of everybody. Everything's fine. And when somebody kind of goes a little left of that, then you try to push them back on course, and if that doesn't work, then we do have the ability to actually ban somebody. To my knowledge, there is nobody that has been banned from RPGGeek that wasn't just somebody that signed up for an account and just started, blasting some spam or something, had nothing to do with the community.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to jump to a question we got from the Q&A. This is from Taylor Stokes. He's the primary community organizer for the story gaming community in Portland. And so I'll go ahead and bring this thing up here so you can see it. What do you do about status privilege within the community? How do you go about equalizing status privilege that's been prevalent for a long time? And then slightly on the second part, what's the proper course of action when a person abuses their position within the community?
If it's okay to take this first, I will. I know I just talked, but
go ahead, Dave.
So at RPGGeek, we really the site principals who own RPGGeek and BGG are not on the site sort of day to day. All of the people that are on RPGGeek, including all of the admins and moderators, are volunteers. Many of us don't even bother to sort of put the admin banner up, right? I mean, we try very hard to just sort of be part of the community, and only we step in if something needs an administrator, right? Somebody posted in the wrong forum, or somebody's having some trouble, putting their collection online or something like that. So we try very hard not to do that. A couple of years ago, we did institute a posting level. So, if you made 100 posts, you were a level 1 poster. And just like RPGs, it went up to, level 20 in the traditional Gygaxian style, right? And there was a lot of pushback from that. A lot of the long-standing community members did not want this leveling system because they felt like people would just make junk posts. But ultimately, I think it's been a really good thing for RPGGeek, and it's since been adopted back to BGG. So hopefully it's working out.
Yeah, for us too, we have we're much smaller for the IGDN, but I feel that elected positions have really helped us out because everyone might really want Mark to be president forever, but we have a term limit as well, so you cannot be president for longer than 2 years in a row. So that forces the community to kind of think of different ways of doing things and think of what it might be like to have another person in charge. Likewise, because we're smaller, we're able to, we have an application process for people who want to be a part of the IGDN, and I try and keep updated member list on the website so that certain people can sort of like self-select out. So if you're like, oh, I don't like that guy, so I won't even apply, because we do have ways of sort of managing who's going to be, what big names are coming in, and whether we want their influence sort of within the group. But because we're small, we also one-to-ones, I think, are the greatest way to get across to people. If I have a problem with somebody who's a big name, I'm going to talk to that person. I'm going to build a relationship between them, just them and me, and talk it out with them and be like, look, you're coming off this way. We need you to take a step back because we have this norm or something that's, we need to make room at the table for other people who haven't been talking more. So I feel like really, if you're a smaller community, and I think it works for big ones too, if you have enough volunteers who are willing to put in the time and effort to make those relationships between people, but actually just getting to know them and talking to them one-on-one, I think is a great way of managing that sort of tension.
So what I'd like to add from my experiences organizing communities is that enforcing rules and expectations evenly is really important. What I've seen, especially in gaming communities, for some reason, is a tendency for cults of personality to form. For whatever reason, someone becomes just the apple of everyone's eye, and that's okay in one sense, but in another sense, you need to make sure that it doesn't balance the community. And one good way to do that is to have pre-established channels formed where individuals can communicate and be heard no matter what their status is. And I think that's really important to build into a community in the beginning so that it's always there. So if power dynamics get wonky, you can lean back on that structure to even things back out.
Thanks, Strix. Trey, anything, in an online gaming convention where people kind of host up their own game, how do you...
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you do that?
I'm pretty small. You're looking at, head keeper of everything, head volunteer of everything, head moderator of everything. So if you don't like something at LUGCon, you talk to me. I do have volunteers who try and do their best to help, but everything comes through me. And so I haven't had really any issues. Everybody's been cool. Thank God. But I have looked at other people as they've had issues, like Indie Plus last year when they had some issues with some of the stuff and they came up with some standards. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So I started instituting things like that. So I wish I could say I have a whole bunch of guidelines in that respect, but I don't. But I'm very upfront with people. And I try and engage them early on so I can understand, are you toxic? Are you, having an inflated ego? What's happening? And I always listen to my volunteers. So I don't know. I guess it doesn't sound like it's on topic, but I really listen to what everybody has to say. And when one person barks too loud, what usually equalizes it out is I say, well, put that into action. And so what happens is there's a lot of talk and less action. And so people usually kind of moderate themselves by not following through with all this stuff. So like in one respect, somebody wanted to, or a few people wanted to really take LUGCon in a different direction. And I was kind of like, all right, well, we're going to take this diplomatically, and anybody who wants to follow this new direction, put up or shut up. And, it just kind of went back to me being the leader. So, I don't know, as a one-man band, I don't have this issue, but I'm listening to everybody's responses, and I think it's awesome. So, I'm going to try and implement some of those as I move forward.
It's benign dictator.
Yeah, I listen to everybody, and then whoever is willing to step forward while everybody steps back, you get to take charge.
Augustus Trey. All right. Marissa, I'm going to lead off with you. This is a question from the Q&A. Strix, check me, because I'm going to blow this name, because I'm not very smart. Vinicius Incho Chagas? I don't know. Okay, so in Brazil, there's a lot of... I apologize, Vinicius. Not very good at pronouncing names. In Brazil, there's a lot of criticism on designers focusing on developing only their games without doing much for the community itself, like participating on discussions, events, or conventions. Is money versus community work an issue in your community, and should it be?
Well, I definitely don't speak for everyone in my organization. First of all, I think that disagreeing is huge, because balance is so hard. So I think that actually, from what I've seen, people take this as a hobby rather than a job. And so I feel like sometimes we have the opposite problem, where people are like, well, why are you charging money at all for your game when, we're all just here to have fun and it's not realistic to make money anyway, right? Where I'm mostly, I would say no. Actually, I would like to make money with my company, because that's why it's a company and not just a hobby. So I think that anything in too much of an amount is definitely a problem. I think that being a part of some community that fundamentally can disagree with you, in a respectful way is always healthy. So that would be my advice, is to, if someone's not a part of a community that can disagree, that they should try and find a space that allows them to do so, or to actually create one themselves.
Thank you. Dave, what about RPG Geek? This is a weird juxtaposition of RPG community versus community work, but is there anything that the RPG Geek does as a community for communities?
Can you rephrase that question, Rich?
Yes, I realized as I said the words that they made no sense. I think that the question that Vinicius has asked is about game designers doing work for their local communities. So I would think that he's asking about should game designers focus on doing the business or doing good works? I think that's what the question was. So I thought, is there anything that RPG Geek does as far as volunteer work in the real world or fundraising?
Not specifically, but let me try to reinterpret the question a little bit.
Go for it.
So at RPG Geek, we're very one of our guiding principles is to do the right things, and we're trying to do the right things by publishers and designers. So we are very publisher and designer friendly, and we encourage designers to participate at RPG Geek. We encourage them to launch their, publicize their Kickstarters, right? Kickstarter's the big thing the last few years. We've got a Kickstarter forum that we like to encourage the designers to use. For some reason, some designers have really latched on and are using our community. You get guys like Fred Hicks from Evil Hat, just a fantastic guy. He's all over the forums, always posting about his Kickstarters and various things that are coming up, answering questions about his game, engaging the community. And then there's other designers which we have, I guess I would say we've courted, that just really don't have any interest either in engaging with the community or engaging with the community at RPG Geek. But we are trying, certainly we want, it's one big hobby, right? So it's publishers, designers, game masters, and players, and heck, even people that just like to read RPG books. I got shelves full of them that I may never play, but I love to read. So it's just about bringing everybody together.
Nice. Thanks, Dave. Trey, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, so like this work versus community, I'm going to reinterpret the question too. One of the big things with the LUGCon right now, the Let Us Game RPG convention, is that I do it all volunteer based. And so I have no money and I put out money and time for this. And so it's really been draining since I've been doing it over a year. Put hundreds of hours into it and got no return back besides enjoyment, which I love gaming with everybody. So, I don't minimize that, but it's definitely one of those issues over time that I've actually lost some volunteers because of the money factor. And so one thing that we're trying to do, I mean, it's different from the other people on the panels. We're running an online convention. When anybody goes to a convention, it always costs them money. So what we're trying to do is compensate some of the people that are working with our online convention in some way. We can't do it right now, so don't worry, in September nobody's getting charged, but I've lost people because I can't do it, and some really great people that were awesome. And so it's like I'm trying to balance this thing where, yeah, I started it for the love because I haven't had time to focus on my game design, but I'm a game designer and I really enjoy doing that part of it, and that's really where LUGCon was bred, was the idea that I need to get out to players. I got to get my game play tested. I got to get it in front of people and get their responses, so let me do it with a convention. But then I started running the convention instead of developing my game, and so it pulled me away from what I really wanted to do. So when you talk about money versus volunteerism or community, really understand that your community is comprised of three things. You have your players, you have your game masters, and you have your content creators, whether they be publishers or whatever. And you really have to cater to all three of those. So because of that, nobody's going to get into it for free. I'm sorry. People will do it as a hobby and enjoy it as long as they can, but you're not going to be sustained, in my opinion, I guess, just on free stuff. So always kind of think of how you're making the players happy, how you're making the game masters happy, and how you're making the content creators happy. And that's something that we're trying to transform right now with LUGCon, and hopefully in 2015 we'll have a really good model for everybody to be happy. That's kind of the future of where we're going. But right now it's still free, and people still have a lot of fun, but we're losing some good talent because there's no money involved.
And that's really boss that you're trying to cater to all three. Like, we just cater to one. That's how we do it. We're like, we are for game designers and only game designers, and that takes away a lot of this extra pressure. So there's a lot. If you're trying to make this huge package of awesome, then more power to you. That's great.
Shooting for the moon.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to jump back to some of the pre-panel questions. This comes from Emily Care Boss. Her question is, how do you keep a community growing over time?
So that's a really great question. Attrition is one of the biggest things that we paid attention to when I was running my gaming group in the Midwest. The way we did it was really specific because it was an in-person group, but we made sure that our group was welcoming and positive, so it looked like a place that new players would be comfortable. You want to go to different conventions or different meetup groups, you want to introduce yourselves, you want to have people interact with your content, and then you're going to want to be like, hey, you should come to our next thing, it is here. It's important to be organized because you can't pull this off if you're running around like a big mess. But the other important thing in attrition and to gaining new players is that you look like you love them. And so the key thing here, I think, is leadership. If you have people in the leadership that new players can identify with, such as a woman or a person of color or a queer person, that sends a very loud message that they are welcome, and then they are much more likely to stay.
Thanks, Strix.
I have to just say, yeah, you gotta really be welcoming. I think part of the LUGCon thing is having personalities where everybody feels free to share. Luckily, I haven't had any issues where people don't feel that way, and so people bring a new game that nobody's played, and then all of a sudden have a great session, and now they're jazzed, going into the future. So try and make the people that are part of your community feel accepted and have fun with it.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm not so. I haven't had to be so concerned about making people feel at all times really happy to be there, because, like I said, I feel that disagreement is actually a really good tension to have in any group. But I definitely 100% agree with being engaged. If there is some project that one of your members is all about, then I say you go with Tre's suggestion and tell them to do it. Give them the resources they need to go and actually do that. Like, start that team, grab a bunch of other people who are interested, but just keep that just excitement flowing through actually doing things together, keeping people engaged by coming up with fundraisers if that's what people want to be doing, by having a social if that's what people want to be doing. But don't feel obligated to do everything yourself, because there's lots of ideas already flowing for how other people view your group. So just I would say just have an open mind for people to actually go off and do their own thing with your group and your resources.
Dave, did you have something to throw in?
I did, and I'll keep it as brief as possible, but because this is definitely something that from day one, I was that guy that sat on Google Analytics hitting F5 trying to see how many people were visiting our site. First day, 3 people. I'm thinking, well, it's me and my mom and somebody I don't know. So we've done everything. We've tried everything. We've tried going out to other communities and trying to get people to sort of take interest in RPGGeek. That did not work at all. That was a terrible idea. We came across as very spammy. As you can imagine, right? Somebody comes into your community and says, look at this other community. So that was a bad idea. We've tried social media. That's been much more successful. So we built our Twitter followers up from 1 to 3,500 people now. So that's really helped. Our G+ community, we have an RPGGeek G+ community. It's where we organize VirtuaCon. Our second VirtuaCon is coming up. Yeah, I know you'll be there. And so contests, like Tre said, if somebody wants to volunteer, we'll back them. We'll support it. And we've had great support from places like Drive-Thru-RPG and Indie Press Revolution. Those guys. I mean, I think at VirtuaCon last year we got something like $2,000 worth of virtual swag that was donated essentially for free, and we gave it all out. We charge nobody anything. We give out the prizes, and this year we're doing it a little differently. We're giving prizes to the game masters and to the panel moderators, which will make Rich happy. Because they do most of the work, right? So last year we gave all of this stuff to the players, but this year we're going to try to give all of it to the game masters. So hopefully we've got somebody who volunteered to contact all of these publishers to see what we can get, and so far the list is huge. But that's the kind of stuff we're doing on a daily basis, and I think we'll just get them one person at a time if we have to, but you know, we're continuing to grow. So hopefully not too fast. We don't want to. We don't want to get to that point where like we lose touch with the fact that we know most of the people in the community, but we do still want to grow.
Very cool.
And I have to add to that question too. Dave reminded me there's very technical things. They were probably wondering specifics. Facebook gave the best response to LUGCon. We did an advertisement on Facebook. That was awesome. We grew like a water balloon at that point. Then we did some Google AdWords last year. That really helped a lot to bring people into the actual event in June. Twitter is great for just engaging with people and keeping this very dull roar going. It doesn't pull a lot of people in right off the top, but if you keep up with your Twitter, it seems to keep this like deep connection. It's kind of weird. I hate to say Twitter does that, but it did. And then if you want to grow the community, definitely do things like podcasting with people like Richard, the Cannon Puncture Show, and other things. But that is great, but give those podcasters like 2 weeks to a month to edit the material that you record. So don't assume that they can just put it out there the next day. So you got to really dig into them early. And then if you can get other people that liked your event to talk about your event, that's help. Like Ben Robbins with Microscope, he likes what we do, and so he made a post not too long ago, and that really helped kind of bring some people in. So for specific stuff, hit your social media. G+ is still the best place to get the most people. Facebook paid advertising and AdWords definitely helped. So for like detailed stuff, that's good. I wouldn't worry about banners. I haven't wasted time on one banner, period.
I do have to say, yeah, if we're the specifics that I also glazed over is definitely that giving your support what that actually looks like. I would say if you are running an event or a community or some sort of forum of that nature, don't underestimate like just giving them the thumbs up and checking in with them later. Like that is support. There's support can come financially. It can come, you know, just by saying, how's it going with that project that we sent you off to do? Oh, it's not going well. Can we do anything to help you? Like it's not. It doesn't have to be financial either.
I agree. I do think. First of all, I'm gonna spin back real quick. A little. If you speak on a podcast and you can keep yourself from saying a lot, turnaround's a lot faster. So another question from Emily Care Boss is how should people building? Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead here. What organizational structures help reduce burnout for the coordinators? This one's for you, Trey. They're going to tell you some things to keep you from burning out.
I'm listening. I got my pen ready.
Get your listening ears on, Trey. How can we make a community relevant for people from different disciplines, from different backgrounds? So let's tackle the. Dang it! I just mixed two questions again. Let me step back. What organizational structures help reduce burnout for the coordinators and facilitate passing knowledge along over time?
Well, I guess I'll jump in here. Like I said, we have term limits, which is very helpful. If you want to pour your heart and soul into being, you know, the president or the head coordinator, if you will, of a group, then do that and have it known that there's a term limit so that people begin to start thinking of the organization without you before you're burned out. That said, I would also expand this to having different leadership teams within your organization. So if, you know, your treasurer needs a lot of support, then you should have a whole group of people supporting them. If you, you know, have a membership coordinator who needs more help or is doing a lot of stuff, give them, more volunteers, because, people are always willing to help, and they usually, I've found, want to be useful. So, when someone comes and asks for help, there's usually at least one or two people willing to step up and take that.
I'll jump in. So at the Geek, we have kind of it's really an unofficial hierarchy. There's one guy, Aldi, who owns the site, but he's reasonably hands-off, so he provides a lot of the tools that we need to form the community and run the community and express ideas and all of that. But we have at sort of very top level, we have admins and moderators, which for the most part are culled from people who are part of the next level down, which is a consortium, which we have, runs via email. It's where we kind of hash out the thorny issues without the sort of public seeing us argue about things. And we try to include designers, publishers, and just regular community members in that group so that we can hash out ideas and say, this would be a good direction to take things in. Ultimately, it still gets decided upon by the moderators. One level below that is at a public level, you can join the RPGGeek Heroes Guild, which provides you a micro badge and sort of an unofficial status that you are wanting to step up and be a leader within the community. And it's sort of lead by example, and it's the heroes do everything from make sure that new users are acclimated, that they have what they need. They run contests. They organize reviews and session reports and things like that. So. And then, of course, the regular community members, anything that they want to do to help, we're willing to listen to them. But usually it ends up, they end up joining the Heroes Guild or end up in the consortium or end up as a moderator. So everything is volunteer, and people kind of sort of move up the ranks. It's not real Gestapo-like, but it does provide us a little bit of hierarchy.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. Strix, what advice do you have for Trey here before he gets all burned out?
Yeah, so I basically learned all of these things the hard way because I made a lot of mistakes early on when I was running things, and I did actually burn out hardcore. I hardly ever GM anymore simply because, oh my gosh, I can't deal with it. And so what I learned is that there's a couple of really important things. One of them is to build a team, but the second important part of that is to actually rely on your team. Trust other people to carry parts of the organization, because if you try to do everything yourself, eventually you're going to run up against a wall, which I definitely did. The other part is mentorship. Mentor people. Do not be afraid to groom people that you want to take over certain roles or certain aspects as the organization grows. Looking back, if I had done a better job of mentoring people to do things the way that the organization needed them to be done, I probably could have avoided burnout altogether. And so very hard-won lessons, but ones that I would definitely encourage other people to think about.
Thanks, Strix.
And I gotta say, you're right about the burnout. So everybody who's watching this podcast, listen. This is good stuff to assimilate into your next project if you're looking at doing a project like this. Because I've been doing it over a year, and it just takes a lot out of you.
Got that sense, brother. It's all good. I love what Lug does. I want to keep going. So Philip Nitzel, another pre-panel question, asks, how do you keep a bigger community from breaking up into cliques or cliques? When is it best to leave a community as a clique or start a new community in addition?
Okay, I got to start because I know I'm going to be different than everybody else. I want people to go start other online conventions. So if you like what LUGCon does, talk to me. I have some blog posts already about how to do this very concretely, and I want you to go off and do it. Go make as many online conventions as possible, because the biggest thing to me is when I search on the internet, besides things like VirtualCon, EtherCon, Contessa, a few other things, there are not that many. There's not over a dozen online conventions. I will say that with definitive fact. Prove me wrong. There's not over 12. And so there should be. It's the internet. I can search one word and get a trillion different answers back. But if I try and search the phrase online RPG convention, I get barely a page. So go take it, run with it, do it. I want clicks. And LUGCon tries to focus towards independent gamers, so people that are willing to play independent games. We're not looking towards D&D, Shadowrun, all that kind of stuff. We want people that do little bit of stuff. So I just knew I'd be a little different than everybody else. I want you to take this model and run with it. That's all I got to say.
I totally disagree, and you should feel bad. No. No, I actually think that I think that it depends on, excuse me, my uhs are getting out of control there. I think it depends a lot on what your community is about. Because certain communities are going to branch out on purpose, right? You're going to have a lot of people who are trying to create power within themselves, and once they get powerful, they're done and they're out, and good for them. There are others, like I keep mentioning, who are there to challenge each other, and that becoming super homogenous is actually going to be counterproductive. So I think that coming up with a mission statement for your group is key to figuring out whether or not you should start your own separate community, or let it break, let it break up or die out, or whatever the direction may be.
Now, there's a follow-up about goal-oriented that I'm totally going to hit you up because you had to go there, so I appreciate that you did. But I think Dave's probably got something to say here about this question about clicks.
So I know that there's been some clamoring on RPGGeek as we've grown to kind of use what they're using over on BGG, on Board Game Geek. Board Game Geek's gotten so big that they've sort of been forced to come up with subdomains. So if you go to BGG and you look at the top page, you'll actually see war games and puzzle games and family games, and I can't name them all, but there's probably 8 or 10 of them. And if you go to Video Game Geek, they have something similar for people that are into, first-person shooters and role-playing game, computer role-playing games and that sort of thing. And they may even break them down by platform. So it may be like Xbox versus PlayStation. But we've really resisted that on RPG Geek. We would like to make sure that the people that enjoy story games are interacting with the people that like to play Pathfinder. And so it's okay that certain things kind of dominate for a while. Right now, 5e for Dungeons & Dragons is obviously a hot topic, right? So like half of the threads are D&D, but that doesn't mean that we want to necessarily put the 5e people in a box. So we're really just trying to keep everybody talking to each other, not trying to isolate anybody. I've resisted the subdomains. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but for now I would like to make sure that our community remains homogenized. That's nice. A grown-up word, Rich.
Dude, I'm totally, I'll be looking that up in another window.
We could hashtag it.
Homogenized.
We are definitely hashtagging it after this.
Strix, what do you have to add about clicks?
Sure. So I just want to take this moment to say that most gaming communities are really tiny, right? They're very small, and they're spread out, and they're isolated. They're almost like little islands most of the time. And we're all fortunate that we're heavily connected through Google+, which is not a luxury that maybe a lot of gamers actually have. And so from my point of view, looking at it that way, I feel like clicks are actually fairly toxic, and they should generally be discouraged. I would much rather see an integrative approach, and an approach that gets as much of the community together as possible, because I think it will just be healthier that way. One of the issues with isolation and clickishness is that a clique is basically an echo chamber, right? And so if there are toxic things going on, they're much less likely to be straightened out if it's just these same people going over the same ground and again and again. So I really, really think that if you can avoid clicks, that you should. If there is a toxic click, leave it alone. But mostly, I would say that I would want to encourage people to connect across communities and build a much larger sort of meta RPG community.
Thanks, Strix. I appreciate that. The next question we have is from Marshall Miller, although not only Marshall asked this, but also Mira Berry. And the only reason I said Marshall first is that I copied it as it came in by time. So they pretty much asked about the same time. And this is where I'm leading off with you, Marissa. Get ready, Magneto. Intentional communities, achieving community goals, deciding to end communities. How do you measure how effective your community is? And if you achieve that goal, do you walk away, drop the mic?
So I would say I hope not, because something you're doing is working if you're achieving your goals. And to me, that would mean that you can do more and come up with more goals and impact your community and, generally make some positive changes, hopefully. Deciding to end communities, I don't. It's a good question. I think it's hard because I don't feel that any one person can really end a community. I think that you can walk away from one, but once it's started, it's its own thing, and that's going to keep going whether or not you engage in it or not. And I think that's why they're so powerful, and that's awesome. But yeah, achieving your goals. I think just being clear about your goals is going to determine whether or not you achieve them. If somebody's coming up with a whole bunch of cool game plans, but you look back at your goals and you're like, these don't seem to be reflecting what we're here to do, then maybe it's time to change your goals or to reassess what you've been doing with your time.
I would just add really quickly to that to make your goals concrete so that you know when you've achieved them. If like I want to make the community more inclusive, but you don't specify how or give a way to measure that, then it's not really a goal, and it's not really going to help you out that much.
And I'd say celebrate your successes. That is just huge to me. If you celebrate what your community does together and make sure that you don't just pound in your failures or oh, these conflicts keep arising in this arena. What are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? That can also lead to burnout. And I would say just make sure that when you do succeed at some of your goals, that you actually pat yourselves on the back for that, because that's the big deal.
So yeah, I think this is kind of an interesting question because I couldn't imagine just ending the community unless that was something you started off with, to say, when we reach 100, we're going to stop. So community kind of is the idea of building. I mean, it should always be building and growing like bacteria. Just keep it going. But then the other thing is, like, achieving goals. The goals are almost like a race. They're just benchmarks. So, you have one goal, achieve. Now, new goal, achieve. New goal, achieve. So, great question. And I would also say to the first part of that question with intentional communities, don't make it a community just to say, oh, I'm a community. Like, actually try and have a mission or a focus or something when you do start the community. So if your focus is to reach 100 people and end, great. But don't just start a community saying, I'm just going to start a community. Like, you're going to have a lot more, I can't find the right word. You're going to be happier with what you've done if you started with an idea or a mission or some kind of focus. If you're just all over the place, the difference between a forest and a garden, everything's growing, but a garden has intent, where a forest is just everything going. So you're going to have a lot more fun with a garden than you are with a forest.
And that said, that means that also growth isn't just numbers, right? Like, your community can remain small if that's to your mission, but then growth is going to look a little different than we reach 100 people, or we reach 1,000 people, or reach 1 million people.
Man, that forest and the garden thing, that was great, Trey.
Just going to say that's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Dave, did you have anything to add before we start to come to a close here about the?
Yeah, I just want to say that RPG Geek is closing on Tuesday.
Wait, I just found out the virtual con I get some stuff. That can't happen.
What?
Just kidding. Just
oh,
kidding.
Sheesh.
Okay. I don't know if I can walk away from that. I'm verklempt. Hold on. Okay. So last question.
What did you say about dropping the mic? That was just like a, oh, I'm out of here. Yeah.
Oh, drop this mic, but it's expensive. All right, so thanks to all four of you ahead of time as we kind of come to the close here. This is a question from Brent Newell, and the question is, what are the advantages or disadvantages of a central pillar of content, like a certain site or game or company or topic of conversation, like trying to unify around a particular banner for a community?
I would say that doing that, right, we're a whole bunch of independent game designers who come together under one banner, that it creates conflict just off the bat, because we all have different interests, and trying to come to consensus can be pretty hard. I think we get around that by making teams of people who come to decisions, so we don't just, become stagnant and just discuss how none of us agree. That stuff gets done even when we disagree through our leadership teams, and that if you're really passionate about a direction that we're going, that you run for office, and that's encouraged, and that you have your own team to be able to do that.
Oh, seems like this one was not super popular.
Oh, no. Well, I didn't want
to. Come on, Trey, give me something.
Yeah, I didn't want to step on people. And I kind of took the question a little bit different. Like with our thing being independent, we can't have a central pillar of content, because with indie games, you don't know what people are developing. And I just want to try it all, like Microscope and Fiasco and other things like that, where it's different than DICE. So I just want to try everything. But I would say advantage of having just that central pillar is everybody knows what you're coming to. Consensus is easier to arrive at. Disadvantage, I don't know. But the way I misinterpreted that question was, like with LUGCon, what we tried to do is we use G+ because it has everything already programmed for us. And so we tried to make our website our central in terms of communicating things. So if G+ goes out, we still have content on our website. So if you're going to, like in central, I'm thinking like design terms, not necessarily topic. I would say definitely try and have another place as a repository. So if you're basing your community on like Twitter or Facebook, maybe have another site that people can come to, like an RPGGeek.com, where they can come in and still get that information if it all folds. So I know I kind of conflated that question a little bit, but it answered two things for me.
Very cool. Thank you, Trey. I'm going to jump over to Strix. Can you talk about a specific game as a pillar?
Yeah, I can definitely talk to this question about having a specific game as a pillar. We had Legend of the Five Rings, L5R, as a specific pillar for our gaming community for 2 years. It did some good things and it did some bad things. The good things were people were really, really able to get into that content, to be completely immersed in that world, which is what everyone wants when they're gaming. We were able to build a consistent storyline over a long period of time, and everyone knew what we were about. If you want to play L5R, you come to us. One of the issues was content fatigue. Like, sometimes you just really get tired of magical samurais, right? But if your group has been founded around this pillar, then suddenly ripping out that content pillar can leave utter chaos, essentially. And so people are like, well, what do we do now? What does it mean to be a part of this group? And so we ended up just staying with L5R, because there was definitely talk of moving on to something else. But we found that if we removed that core once it had been there and planted for a while, that it completely messed up the community and people were very confused about what exactly we were about, if they were still interested in playing at all. And so we just want to be aware of the limitations, but also the great things of building around a specific game.
Thanks, Trix. Dave, did you have something to add along this line?
Sure. We don't rally around a specific game or designer or that sort of thing, but we do. I guess the RPGGeek strength and the Geek strength in general is that we've provided a framework, a lot like the G+ communities, and so we try to grow the framework so that people can discuss and do what they want to do. So, you know, somebody decided that they wanted to have an RPG giveaway, right? I have some old books. I don't want to sell them. I just want to give them to somebody. And then that person who gets them then takes something from their collection and moves it on to somebody else. It's called the chain of generosity. We actually call it the chainmail of generosity, which you may be familiar with. So, you know, we have geek lists that support that. We have play-by forums with the die roller for people that want to play by post. So, in a sense, we've kind of rallied around the technology that Aldi has provided. I mean, he's provided a framework that we can do whatever with. What we were doing with it 5 years ago is not what we're doing with it now, and it's probably not what we're going to do with it in 5 years. And in case I don't get an opportunity to talk again, I do want to mention there is a huge free book from O'Reilly Press called The Art of Community by Jono Bacon. You can get it online. It's a 575-page book. They charge you if you want the print book, but the PDF is free. And while it's not the greatest book I've ever read, it's an unbelievable free resource for people that want to understand what drives people to communities, why people feel kinship around a certain topic or idea or belief, and what you can do to help grow and keep your community vibrant. So it's well worth checking out. I'll put the link here in the chat.
And I got to say one thing, because I know we're ending up. This whole conversation has been about community, and just I want people, this is kind of like a kumbaya moment, I want people to realize that if you like something, be brave enough to step out there and say, I like this, who's going to join me? Because that's part of the community, is people see you step out there and then they go step out there. And so just realize, like, you're not alone. If you feel like isolated and alone, maybe just step out there and say, this is what I'm into, who else is into it? And that's really how LUGCon was formed. Is I said, hey, I'm a game designer, I want to play The Matrix, my game, let's go do it. And then before I knew it, I had a couple people, then I had a couple hundred people, you know, and so it starts to build. So just a kumbaya is realize that whether you build it over nothing or over something, just believe in it, step out there, people might follow.
Very cool. Thanks, Trey. I want to hug you, but you're really far away. So awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close. I just want to give a big thanks to all of you. Strix, where can we find out more information from your academic mind of gaming?
Sure. So there are actually several places they can do that. The easiest is my personal website, strixworks.com. It's works spelled with an E. I also have an academia.edu profile that has my actual published papers either on file or accessible through links. So that would be one really great place to look into what I've written about play and play theory. Thank
you. And so, Trey, LUGCon, how can we find LUGCon?
LUGCon has a community on G+. We also have lugcon.com if you're just on the internet, not on G+. So next, let's see, September 1st through September 7th, play a game, make a game, you'll have fun.
Thank you. Marissa, IGDN, tell us how to find it.
Yes, IGDNonline.com. And we have contact information there if you want to apply, or just check out what we're doing. We also have a Facebook and stuff that updates for that, but you can check out what our members are doing and things like that.
And Marissa, I'm sorry, but I want to hear about your dragon game that came out at Gen Con, so tell me about this real quick, come on.
Baby dragons, yay! My ash can is out right now, and people are playtesting it. Give me all the feedback, all of it. I need it. And then I'll be kickstarting it next year.
Awesome. What's it called?
Epyllion, E-P-Y-L-L-I-O-N. It means mini epic. It's a real word. I didn't make it up. I promise.
Does it hurt to make up words? I kick this off with a made-up word. Okay, and then Dave, RPGGeek.com, right? I mean,
right. And at RPGGeek on Twitter, plus RPGGeek on G+. Yeah.
And VirtuaCon is when to when?
VirtuaCon is the weekend of Columbus Day here in America. It's October 10th, 11th, and 12th. Boy, I hope I got those dates right. And if you go to rpggeek.com /VirtuaCon14 or just search Google for VirtuaCon, it'll come up. And yeah, we're just sourcing game masters right now. Probably got about 25 games ready to roll, and hopefully have close to 50, 60 before we get to the event.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thanks to all of you, the panelists. It's been a fantastic time, and thank you for giving us an hour. Again, you've been watching Indie Plus as part of our game night, and if you want to subscribe to Indie Plus's YouTube, we're trying to get more subscribers, more people, build the community, kind of like blow it up like Trey does. Then please hit the subscribe button and join us and give us feedback. Thanks again, everyone, and have an excellent evening.
Thanks for having us.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yay.
Rich.
Bye-bye. Mwah.